Hello, this is a short screencast to illustrate how to read in and read out a text file in Java using NetBeans. Okay, so in this example, what I've done, I've started stuff off already. I've got a project called at the top of the screen here, file IO example, and I've got a class called event.java. And if we have a look at event, it has a string and three integer fields for day, month, and year. It has a single constructor which accepts a string and three ints. It's got a toString method, and it's got something else called a toFile, which I'll come back to later. So very simple. I haven't put in getters and setters. And the main code that we're going to do is going to be within the main method. Slightly different to how I showed it in the slides. But never mind. Something else that I need to do first of all as well is I need to make sure that I have the file that I want to use, and it's just disappeared, in the correct. So I've got dates.txt. You see it here. It's within the project file for NetBeans. And if you have a look at the format, it starts with a number 4, and then it's got dentist and a date, end of semester date, Christmas and a date, Hogmanay and a date. And the separators are a comma between the description and the date thing, and to separate the day, the month and the year I've got a slash symbol, so I'm going to have to think about that later on. I've got a 4 at the top because I want to store these things in an array, and you need to know how many things you've got before you start. Right, so let's just get on with this. First things first, I need to create something to read with, and that is a buffered reader. So I'm going to create buffered reader br equals new buffered reader. Oops, now I've made a spelling mistake there. But it should tell me that I need to do an import. So I'm not going to type it in, I'm just going to click add import, and it'll add it at the top of the screen. If you have a look at the constructor, oh, it's telling us there. The constructors, we need to give it a reader, and one of the readers that we can use is a file reader. So we need a new file reader, and we'll have to include the import for that. And then if we hover over that, it'll say that that's not applicable either. We need a new file in there, new file, and I'm going to create the new file with the name of the file that I'm using at the moment. I'm just going to break this line so we can see it all, and the name was dates.txt. Semicolon at the end. You'll have to add an import for Java class file, and then it'll say creating that buffered reader will throw an exception, and we have to catch that. So if you click on it, you can see surround the statement with a try catch. Okay, so we've got a try catch, and it catches a specific exception. We can actually turn that around and just make it just get rid of that and do a sys s out ex.to string, and that'll do us. We could do something a bit more complicated there, but I'm not going to. Okay, so that creates the reader, and then what we can do is we can start reading from that file. And the first thing that we want to read is br dot, and if we look at the options, there is something called read line. So if we do br.readline, that would read the first line and save it as a string. Now we know that there's an integer there, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to capture that as int size. But readline creates a string, so what you have to do is turn that into a parse int. That's it. We have to parse the string into an int, and that will give us the size of the array that we want to construct. So what we can do is a little bit higher up, we can have what is it? It's an array of event. So we've got event events equals, nope, we'll leave it like that. The declaration outside has to be outside so that we can use it out with the try catch. And then within, once we know the size of the array that we're dealing with, we can do events equals new event, what was it, size. So that would creates the array of the correct size. And now what we can do is start reading in data. Because we've been given the size of the array, we could just have a for loop here and loop round for I equals 0 to less than or equal to size. But I'm going to use a while loop because that's the more standard way of dealing with things, and it stops you having reaching the end of the file. So I'm going to do string new line equals br dot and then read. Where is it? What am I looking for? Read line. Right at the top, I couldn't see it. So that'll read the next line, and then we can do while new line is not equal to null while we've actually got something to process. What we're going to do is we're going to take the new line and we're going to split it up with a string tokenizer st equals new string tokenizer. So we're taking the new line and we're going to split it up into tokens. And we need to add the import. We've got a few unused imports up there, so I'm going to get rid of them. Get rid of them things. And what we need to do is specify how the tokens are split up, or what the separators are. So we'll follow this with, I think there's a comma used between the date and the figures in the description of the event, and there was a slash used within the figures in the date. So if we include both of those, then what we can do is we can say something like string description equals st dot next token returns a string, so that's our string. Then we can get int the day equals, now this time we've got to do an integer dot parse int st dot next token, so that will get us the day as an int, and then the month is very similar, integer dot parse int st dot next token, and I'm going to copy that, copy, and I'm going to paste it there and change that to yeah. And then when I've got that information, what I can do is I can start adding to my collection. So I can do something like event e equals new event. Oh, I'll tell you what I can do. I can actually add directly into the events count. I haven't defined what count is, so that's equals new event with desc, comma, day, comma, month. Oops, made a bit of a mess of that. Month, comma, year, and it's not gonna. It doesn't like count, of course. So at the beginning here, I'm going to have count equals 0. Oops, int count equals 0, and then after I've added each one, I do a count plus plus, and then we've read one line, we've turned it into an event and added to the thing. So the next thing that we do is new line equals br dot, and there should be a read line, and then we go back up into the while and we test whether that's null, and that should populate our populate our array of events. The last thing we should do, once we get down to here, a new line is equal to null, we've reached the end of the line, end of the file rather, so we should do a buffered reader dot, and there's a close method, just to make sure it's all closed off. And then what we can do is something like for int I equals naught, I is less than events dot length I plus plus s out. What will it be? Events I dot toString, and we should be able to see it. People see why doesn't like that. Events variable events may not be initialized. Oh, that's because we do it inside. Right, so what you can do is you can do something like null, and then that initializes it to something, just so the thing will run. Okay, let's give that a go and see if it runs. Cross fingers. Right, so it's actually read everything in from the file, and it's created a thing, and it's used the toString to print them all out. Hopefully you believe me that that works. Right, so now we might want to write everything back to a file. So writing back to a file is a little bit easier. We create a buffered reader. No, we're not. We're going to create a buffered writer. bw equals new buffered writer, new file, and let's call the new file out.txt, and we'll have to add the imports for buffered writer. I spelled that correctly. Oh, I bet it's saying I need a writer. I need a new file writer, new file. So I need to put a import for a file writer. It seems to like that now. Oops. But it'll say I need to surround it with a try catch. No, I've missed out the bracket. That's it. Right, but it still needs to be in a try catch. So surround it with a try catch, and I'll just change that to like that. Then what we need to do is we know how many things we've got, so we can do for, and it's always easier to do the writing to a file than it is to do the reading from, because you know what information you're writing. So it's I less than events dot l eng length I plus plus, and then what we're going to do? Well, we're going to take bw dot, and we're going to write, and what we're going to write a string, and the string is going to be events 0 dot. Now I wrote a method called toFile, and that's because the toString method, if you have a look at the toString method, it gives a bit of a description, but the toFile actually just writes out what we want in the same format as when we read it in, so a comma and then 2 backslashes between the dates. So we can do events 0, not events 0, events I dot toFile, and then we should also put in there bw.write. We can do it in the same write statement, can't we? Make sure that you add in a new line. So /n, and then when you're finished, you've got to do a couple of things. First one is you've got to flush anything out which is in the buffer, so you make sure that it gets to the file, and then it's a good idea to close it so that you cut the links to it. Right, so let's give that a go and see what happens. Okay, nothing much happened there, but if we go to if I go to, what was it called, out.text, if we have a look at it, one thing I should have done is I should have written out the size before I even started. So let's just do that. So before I even started doing that, I should have done a bw.write. What was it? events.length plus there we go. And then that'll work. It doesn't make that, it's because I haven't put semicolon on the end. I run that, and then I have a look again at was it out.text. You see there's the 4, and it's exactly the same as what we had to start with. So that'll help you if you want to test to see whether it's worked. You can output everything, output your data, and then read it back in again and see if it works. And that's how to use. That's a bit of input and output using the buffered reader and the buffered writer. You can also use a scanner, and it's a little bit simpler, but that'll get you started anyway. Okay, enjoy.